All right, it's day 4 of Innovation Week, and today's the kind of big time troublemaker day. I think part of redefining and reimagining public safety is thinking out of the box, pushing the envelope a little bit, socializing new ideas that are coming in the future, and maybe doing it a lot earlier than one would normally want. But if we're going to make the U.S. the safest country in the world, we can't keep doing what we're doing as a nation, and we need to innovate, and we need to come up with new technologies, new procedures, new capabilities, and give the 2.5 million officers and guards really, as I often say, really smart eyes, ears, and voice on the ground in multiple locations at the same time. And because criminals and terrorists can be anywhere, for us to be successful as a nation, Knightscope needs to be everywhere. And that means anywhere from, as I often say, at a federal courthouse indoors to patrolling a parking lot, a healthcare facility, to a full city and highway, and kind of everything in between. And so today we're going to have a live reaction of what happens when two C-suite guys who love designing things are going to do a little shock and awe with one of our senior engineers and have him pass out live while we go through this. But we've thought some of this through, and some of it is, very much a concept for the future to think, and also frankly get some feedback from our friends in law enforcement and also at the state, local, federal level as we design and refine these concepts. Some of these are a little bit more baked than others that we may intend to actually put into production much sooner than expected. And then lastly, we're not going to be able to build everything in-house. For some of these technologies, it might go faster for us to partner up with someone. It might be us buying something that's an enabler or catalyst, but it is a significant amount of workload, and we're like I said on Monday, it's people, cash, and time. All the stuff that we're showing you is actually doable. It just requires the additional resources to move things forward and continue to grow the business, hopefully by leaps and bounds. So with that, we're going to take you into the future at Knightscope and watch Supreet fall out of his chair while we do it. Let's hand it off to Aaron Lenhart, our Chief Design Officer, and I'm going to be focused on that guy right there.
Yeah.
See what happens.
I can't wait to see the fainting.
Oh my God. Where are the rope? I'm gonna tie to myself.
Hey, look, listen, the CFO is not on the call, right? So
Oh yeah.
this is before the pitch, so it'll be fine.
Yes.
Apoorv will probably fall off his chair too.
Yeah. So last we spoke, we were talking about the K7, and so now, being a designer, like Bill was mentioning, is cool. You get to see the future a little bit before everybody else, but we're going to kind of, in this case, let everybody in on our future a little bit. So we're going to scoot down the road here. 1 second. To future products and concepts.
Oh, so we're in the design, our virtual design studio, and we have now different studios.
Yes.
Okay, so we're
We just
moving
keep
from
adding.
K7 production to the addition that we added to our virtual facility.
Exactly. With no extra cost. So basically we're going to talk about some future concepts.
So this is the advanced studio.
This is the advanced studio. So
Excellent.
Nothing here is, set in stone or finished designed or anything. It's just kind of, back of the notebook kind of, or napkin kind of.
A little bit more than back of the napkin, but
yeah,
wink, wink.
with a 3D model. So let's jump in. So as we kind of mentioned in some of the previous shows, we were talking about K10, where we kind of started off the company. So we're thinking we'd like to bring that forward as well. Now that autonomous technology is still maybe not here yet, but it's getting there. So, thinking more towards the future, maybe the technology gets to a point where we could actually, do some of these things.
So this is, remember, Aaron, you brought this up. When we started the company in 2013, the K10 is what we wanted to get done first. Mm-hmm. But I think, both the technology wasn't ready, and the investors were not supportive at the time. The business case is still there, and the business case is valid. And just maybe to bring Supreet up to speed here, there's about, depending on how you want to count, about 450,000 to 500,000 law enforcement patrol vehicles across the country, running 24/7. And if you're in a major city, you usually are required to run 2 up, meaning 2 officers, because maybe it's a little too dangerous. You don't want a single officer in a single vehicle by himself or herself. And so if you want to run 1 vehicle across the city 24/7 with 2 officers, you can't triple shift an officer, right? So you need actually 8 in order to cover 168 hours in a week. So now you've got 8 officers running around the city, right? Then they need fuel. They need maintenance. You need to buy the vehicle. And because there isn't a purpose-built law enforcement patrol vehicle, someone's got to Velcro and crazy glue all the lights and CB radios and stuff into the rental car, as I'll call it, and turn it into a supposed police car. I mean, we would never do that to a soldier, but somehow we do that to our officers. So if you add up the money associated with everything I just outlined, the 8 officers, the vehicle, the maintenance service, the upfitting, the actual, the whole operation, you're easily over $1 million a year.
Oh, wow.
$1 million a year. And I can, with a straight face, tell you that we fixed the autonomy side of things. We will be not doing anywhere near that cost and be able to provide unprecedented newer capabilities for officers to be able to cover a lot more ground and do it efficiently with taxpayer dollars. And keep, officers out of harm's way is always an important point to make. And so I think, although I believe we're in a self-driving winter now with all the issues with our friends on all the self-driving startups, I think the technology is getting there, and we're getting closer and closer, and eventually there'll be that opportunity for us to, I guess we got 3 routes, right? We can either build this ourselves, meaning the autonomy stack, which would be a reasonable undertaking. We could partner with someone, which, we've started to explore, or, frankly, one or more of the self-driving companies that have a good technology stack, ends up hitting the wall, and we end up buying something to accelerate this. But this now becomes a lot more viable in terms of the intersection of the business opportunity, helping society, and the technology being, almost ready. So you can imagine doing something really interesting and taking what you're working on now for the K7, but putting it on a public road maybe up to, let's say, 35 miles an hour.
That sounds amazing. And
see, he signed off on it. Ship it.
I'm gonna buy that T-shirt. Ship it.
Nice.
With the big ship on it, just ship it.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Supreet?
I love the idea on that because I mean $1 million per year doesn't sound less, right? Like, and also like the safety of the officers make a lot of sense, like in utilizing this K10, and also I mean. Now we are already building the technology on K7. Why don't we utilize the same for on K10, or just like what you were saying, why don't we adapt it? We have plenty of options there. It's a very viable like the model for K10. It's very good. It's very interesting.
I think the other thing that drives me crazy is, you ever seen the little guy in the little three-wheeler looking at doing parking tickets or whatever?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, where the country doesn't have enough officers, that person could be doing something much, much more powerful and effective for society. Again, you want the machines to do the monotonous, computationally heavy stuff. You could easily have this vehicle run around and pull the plates and feed it to a 911 dispatch or a security operations center or an outsourced third party, and collect the data and then let them go do the enforcement work. But physically, like watching an officer sitting there with a hand, literally with a notepad and a pen is just embarrassing. I mean, it's the year 2024. You got to be kidding me. But again, like I said in earlier in the week, the country's not set up to think this stuff through, right? We do this on the battlefield for all our soldiers. We give them all kinds of capabilities and think through everything for them, with them, make sure there's massive defense contractors to build all this stuff so they're fully capable when they're engaged. And somehow on our own soil, we don't do that. And to me, that's an opportunity for us to do some pretty serious good and do something kind of exciting as well.
I agree.
All right, he said ship it, Aaron. Next.
Cool. Let's go.
We'll do a press release. Senior engineer signs off on K10.
It comes on the headline, like once he said it, he fell off the chair.
Yeah. Very cool. On the design side of things, we're kind of looking at, it's going to be on the street. So it's going to be bigger, a lot bigger than a K7. But that said, I didn't really want it to be looking like a car necessarily. Basically, we talked about on the in the other thing on the K7, we don't really have a lot of the constraints, such as where a person would sit. So you're opened up to a little bit more freedoms. We probably still need to think about bumpers and there's some safety items that we need to work through.
Or like Elon always says, no, the best part, no part.
Yeah.
So that's the one discussion of, why is this a three-wheel approach, which Aaron has, I think for 2 decades, violently opposed to three-wheelers. And every time I bring it up, he sends me a barrage of videos of three-wheel failures. Of, vehicles falling over.
I have literally seen them. India has these auto rickshaws. They are like 3-wheelers. So you don't want that.
But in this case, physics might help. The tread is really wide on this thing, and it sits really low, and all the weight's towards the bottom. So I think we might be able to pull this one off, but we shall see.
And it makes a lot of sense too. Imagine this thing has got to patrol all day, so you want it to be as efficient as possible.
Yep.
So we want it, really aerodynamic, very lightweight. So the 3 wheels, save a lot of extra motor and tires and wheels and a lot of weight there.
Energy efficient and pretty much
Yep. And then so let's skip ahead to the model. So here you can kind of see how wide that thing is. I believe it's like maybe we went to the maximum width of a car, so it's close to like 80 inches.
It's very, very wide. So it'll provide that commanding presence without the three-wheeler issue.
Yeah.
And so, you're a fan, I think, Supreet. We, contemplated the in-wheel motors, which I think, as another efficiency opportunity, and that technology has been developing over a long period of time, and it's getting to a point that for some applications that actually, is something to really consider.
Yep. Yeah, you could technically make this a 3-wheel drive vehicle as well if we needed to.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, so kind of the size here. Oh, we did go wider, 88 inches, sorry. Overall height.
88?
88. The absolute maximum.
So you look at the length there, 158. This is not a small vehicle. And if we add the PTZ hand tilt zoom video, we've had some folks ask for PTZ thermal, a little bit of LRAD in there to spice things up. And then don't forget, Supreet, from the other session, you're going to have to figure out the drone landing while the machine's moving algorithm, right? Make sure the hatch opens at the exact right time.
Yep.
So
you'll be definitely love that.
Nothing to worry about.
I definitely have that in my list.
Cool.
Oh, there's the drone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. So that's the K10 concept.
So the two wheels are in the front and not in the back, right?
Yes.
That's a good thing. Yes. So the auto rickshaw that I was talking was the other way around. So this is good.
No. Yeah. All the fun videos to watch are with the wheel up front.
Yeah.
If you're ever bored, need something to watch on YouTube.
I think there is one James Bond movie where he actually, does that with single wheel. So.
Oh yeah.
You know who you want to talk to get your. Actually, Aaron, I should do this. I should introduce you. Our friends over at Aptera, they'll talk your ear off on 3-wheel versus 4-wheel efficiency and how this is all set up properly and everything else. We should set that up one day.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right.
The next one we're going to talk about is the K15.
Oh, before we jump, so is there anything else that we can use for storage on the top? So there is that black space, right? Other than drones.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm thinking there would be some storage areas either along the sides or, in this big, like Bill likes to call it, the canoe on top design. Some storage area for the emergency equipment, that kind of thing, defibrillators, maybe some blankets, water, that kind of thing. So if this thing kind of shows up at an incident, somebody could communicate through it and say, hey, I need this or that, and then maybe the operator could open the hatch and then get out what you need.
Oh, and I guess Bill, single LiDAR on this one as well.
Ooh, that one I have to think about.
Cameras on this one.
That one I had to think about. The one thing, the camera on the, I guess there's not a passenger side on this. The camera on the right side needs to be very well thought through, because if you're going to be grabbing plates while they're parked, you got this kind of odd angle to think about.
Yeah.
But probably we can have a stereo camera for actually the detection part of it, and then we can have another camera for the overlay. So,
or in this time frame, maybe there's no LiDAR.
Just the stereo cameras.
Just cameras. Just cameras. We love our friends at Tesla. Thank you for doing what you're doing. So yeah, maybe in this time frame, no LiDARs, but I guess we shall see.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be exciting.
All right, on to the next shocker.
Okay. The K15. So when we started this project of like what would be the future projects or products of Knightscope, we kind of struggled a little bit. We knew we wanted, three different vehicles, like a K7, a K10, K15. And at first we were thinking, well, maybe, K7 is the slow speed one that just kind of goes a little bit off road. And then we have the K10 that goes like city streets. So maybe it only goes up to like 35, 40 miles an hour. And then the K15 could be like even faster. So like, highway speeds up to like 75 miles an hour or so. And then we're thinking, well, you could almost just make the K10 and the K15 about the same vehicle, basically. Why would we need three? And then, so then we started thinking about, what other use cases could we do? And then Bill calls up one day and he says, hey, I got it. We're going to make a swap van. And I was like, what? So I'm thinking in my head, so we're going to have a bunch of SWAT guys in an autonomous van running around the city and waiting for things to happen? What does this mean? He's like, no. We're going to get the, some robotic dogs and a drone that comes out of the top. And then, one of these bomb sniffing things. And
if you think about how not just SWAT, but just, law enforcement is using robots today, unmanned ground vehicle that's teleoperated is, I don't want to say standard procedure, but relatively available. A lot of our law enforcement clients, have started to use drones, and it looks like the FAA is making some changes to make those more widely available without the without a lot of the regulatory constraints that have made drone deployment, especially in populated areas, a really difficult or very painful, long process. And then, our friends over at Boston Dynamics have been making a lot of progress with Spot, and that's also been taking some agencies to take a look at it. And congrats to the Boston Dynamics team. I've heard, I think you've got more than 1,000 of these out there, if not more. So that's really cool. So now put yourself in a client's shoes and fast forward, a few years, like, okay, you're a law enforcement agency that has unmanned ground vehicles, drones, and dogs. Shouldn't you be able to redeploy those assets where needed? And how are the officers going to be able to do this? And this, back to the premise, robots will be everywhere, and we kind of need to rethink how we operate. And so the idea was basically an unmanned vehicle to help redeploy technology that's already being used by law enforcement agencies in a autonomous manner that can get there before, on the immediate call. And, if you've watched, this is not a great thing to watch, if you go online and watch two officers trying to deploy a drone, get out of the vehicle, open the trunk, try to get the drone out and doing this number. It's not, True. What officers should necessarily be doing or tasked with. They've got, we got plenty of ex-law enforcement folks who've been involved with Knightscope, and they tell you, I'm already full up. Like, look at my belt, look at everything I have to put on. I've got, I don't know how many pounds of worth of stuff. Now you want me to carry more stuff? And so the idea here would be to have both a low speed and high speed transportation unit for those dogs, drones, and unmanned ground vehicles.
Yeah. So that, it makes perfect sense.
I don't think Supreet's convinced, man. That look of like, man, there's so much work involved in this.
No, I like the idea, but so what do you have the name for the dogs?
K9,
Well,
of course.
I mean, obviously Boston
Well,
Dynamics
first day.
has a
Yeah.
leadership role, but you never know. Maybe we end up partnering with somebody or we end up building our own, but we have that K9
Yes.
little badge still left. So maybe we'll see.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I have a question. So
Only one.
Only one. So the first picture that I see, so I think that's the dogs, right? Robotic dogs.
yeah.
And then the next to it is the drone, right?
Yep. And then this would be the UGV.
The UGV, the tiny, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So this project really started as a package study. How big are the dogs? How big is the drone? How big is the robot up front? And then from
Stick them in a sideways refrigerator and let's go.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like with the K10, you want it to be not necessarily huge. I mean, when you think of a SWAT truck, that's a giant, military
Beast
thing. Yeah. And it's got to hold a lot of stuff, a lot of people, a lot of whatever. And we're just kind of trying to package it down to the minimal size, basically, so that we can kind of keep it efficient, lighter weight, and still try and.
You want to go to the model?
all the
Maybe
range.
that'll help with the.
Yeah.
Guys, 'cause
And
the-
also, since we are trying to package it, what's the charging situation? And also make it fully autonomous, right? What's the charging situation for these, the dogs, the drones, and everything?
Yeah, I would think. As we'll see, there's a place for them to dock inside of the vehicle, so I think they could just charge, while they're parked in there.
So that's another thing to think about. Okay, I gotta charge not only the vehicle itself, but I gotta charge all my passengers. And so
exactly.
the battery charging and recharging strategy needs to be thought through very carefully, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, the battery management is gonna be another very good problem to solve with this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, in this time frame, the solar panels will be so awesome that it'll be fine.
So efficient, so much well with
just
tiny chip.
this little tiny thing will charge the whole.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
So much optimism. I love it.
Hey, you gotta dream a little, right?
Sure.
You can't make huge changes just kind of looking at the past and whining about the present. It's okay, let's go fix the problems that affect all of us, and no harm in having a little fun while we're doing it.
Of course. I mean, that's where the designing comes in the picture, right? That's where you dream. And
So how long that's the overall length? This is 190.
158
Wheelbase or overall length?
overall length.
158 sounds small, no?
Yeah, I think it's pretty compact. I mean, the dog itself is, not huge.
Huh.
We just tried to make it as compact as possible.
yeah, it just depends on the drone width.
Yeah.
I guess
You're
the
going
dog's
to
gonna
want
come-
that hole to be as big as possible, right? To land that.
Yeah.
thing.
No, he'll have the drone landing 3mm clearance, no problem.
Figured out.
Nice. Perfect.
So it got an interesting design, the cars. Is it because of the regulations that we have? If we have to get it on the streets, it has to be in certain fashion. Why is it got that interesting, box design?
Yeah. Not at this stage. We haven't really looked into feasibility of anything. It's just, like I said, it's just why
Can we
Yeah.
package the passengers?
Yeah. How to
Packaging
package-
is what matters
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah. And plus, we wanted the front and the rear doors to open to be, like a ramp.
Yeah, go around to the. I think you showed the front. Well, there isn't no front. There's no front or back on this.
It's a front or back. Yeah.
This is gonna mess up the engineers so much.
Yeah.
Yes. So
it's
LiDAR
the back.
6 and 12. Well, there is no.
There is no clock in this.
There's no
Yeah.
clock on this.
Yeah. Yeah, so the back would open up. The door itself gives it a little ramp so the occupants can
The
get out.
occupants.
I'm actually, already picturizing it with, a video of, it going and then standing over there, the back door opens, four dogs coming out and a drone deploying.
Yeah,
So cool. So
it'd be
cool.
amazing to see.
and highly coordinated. Like this is the other thing that
Yes.
I spoke
Oh,
of
yeah.
yesterday is having that mission control an AI capability, because when you start thinking about it, if you do this at scale, you're not going to teleoperate all this stuff. So now you have a bunch of autonomous machines between the dogs, the drones, the UGVs, and the autonomous vehicles that need to cooperate, right? You need to give them a mission and have them go figure it out, as opposed to, well, let me joystick this thing like in a really bad video game and see if I can get to the right location. Like, that's not going to work.
So that's where our swarm robotics comes into picture, the master, and then like you pretty much have, all these, like it's gonna be so cool. Like I love it.
But in a lot of cases, people speak of swarming as usually the same kind of machine, all those drones are swarming together, or the unmanned ground vehicles. But what I'm talking about here is swarming from a different level of cooperation between the drones, the autonomous delivery vehicle, basically, the unmanned ground vehicle, plus the dogs. That is going to be an interesting way to try to figure out how to manage all this stuff, and that doesn't exist, right? Like I said yesterday, you're not going to, let me get my video management system that I use for whatever, or my evidentiary software process that I use at our law enforcement agency to control all this stuff. Like, not happening, right? You're gonna need an entire new AI software platform for autonomous machines.
Correct.
So yeah, not all hardware. There's only just a little bit of software that's going to be required to do this. You'll be fine.
A little bit of
Just breathe in and breathe out.
Very cool. So let's move on to the last one we're going to look at today. And this one comes from an idea that would, go more with our K1B line of products. And our K1B would be like our blue light tower, the emergency call boxes, and the emergency e-phones. And so we're kind of thinking, how do we modernize that into something that's, has a little bit more safety features or other features that it currently doesn't have. So we're kind of thinking it's like a 20-foot tower. It would have solar panels on top, so it's all, self-sufficient. Way up at the top, it could have 360-degree cameras. We'd utilize a lot of the technology that we do on the robots. So basically, it would have the cameras. Also, we want to add a street light to it. So basically, imagine if you're in an emergency situation and you run up to the tower in the dark. You don't want to be in a dark, scary area. So if it had adequate lighting, would help a lot. Would have like the blue light strobe that the current blue light tower has. We could also add our new AGD technology, the acoustic gun detection, as well as maybe in the future we get it to recognize other things like people shouting, that kind of thing. To send some alerts that something weird's happening. We could also utilize the technology that we have for the ALPR, look at license plates, that kind of thing, and then maybe we update the display as well, so it's not necessarily just the manual buttons that we currently have, but it's got an interactive display.
And one of the things that is very sad but a huge opportunity is there's been very little innovation in this area, right? these blue light towers all over the country. We got some estimates. There's probably these are guesstimates, I would say, from industry insiders. There's probably 200, 300, 400,000 of these across the country. Some of them still on landlines. Some of the upgrades still trying to get from 2G to 3G or 3G to 4G. And there's been very little innovation. And I think Knightscope as a technology company has the wherewithal and kind of a different perspective to think this through better. And one of the things that's really annoying, I think, just from a basic, simple public safety perspective, is light is a massive disinfectant. And I don't know how many electric vehicle charging stations I've been to where I'm kind of not all too excited to get out of the car and plug the vehicle in, right? Because you're in a difficult part of town. And, we've had some folks who are like, well, we'll put one of these blue light towers that you guys build today there, and then you'd have an emergency button. I'm like, okay, maybe that'll help. But, the technology's there, LED, nighttime lighting, efficient enough to be run by a battery pack and some thoughtful solar usage, can run all night. And this should be standard. This should not be like, well, we don't even have that or offer it. I think there's a lot of technology like that are on the robots that we've been talking about, like, LiDAR. There used to be a joke in the office, like, don't put a LiDAR on a non-moving object. But there are a lot of reasons why you could very thoughtfully use LiDAR in addition to the cameras and thermal and the like, to give a city, a municipality, much more information that's needed to better run the place, and can also be used for public safety. Having an interactive basic display instead of like the buttons that are there today. And some of the stuff that's out there is really costly. The intercom button, I don't think you know this, Supreet. The intercom button, I got really annoyed because I'm looking at the bill of material on our machines, like, how much is that button? And somehow it turns out to be, I forgot, $22. I'm like, it's a button. Like, how can it cost $22? So call, go look at the bill of material over at the K1B side of things, like, yay, how much is this button? Yeah, about $22. I'm like, why are we paying, $20 for a button? Well, it has to be a certain stainless steel. It has to be a certain, and it's custom made, and this, that. And this is where, that button hasn't been quote unquote touched for years, if not decades, and you're still paying an ungodly sum of money. And that's not what we want our clients to be, investing their dollars in. There's got to be a better way to do this. So reimagining what a tower could look like, all the capabilities, and then making it modular. So maybe it's done in, I don't know, making this up, in 7-foot increments, and you can get, small, medium, large, and extra large, depending on the location and application of what you need, or all the, as Aaron was thinking, was all the smarts are in one area, and then you have extenders as needed. They can be, Wi-Fi hotspots for folks. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff to really make what was popular years ago a reality of Internet of Things. And this can be a reimagined way to think about public safety. And if you can get this device to see, feel, hear, smell, and speak, there's going to be a lot of value there for society and for law enforcement and for city officials. So I think you have a sigh of relief. I can tell on your face, Supreet, that at least this one's not moving. So
yeah, no drones.
The engineering. Oh, forgot the.
I guess we could. Okay.
What
maybe.
is it?
Drones
What
may
is
show
it?
up in there.
Okay. but it does look gorgeous. So one of the things you mentioned was like, having it in like different stages, right? Like 7 foot one, then, maybe 9 foot, or like based on whatever the requirement. Can we make it more modular, have everything in one, and then like maybe, like, okay, if the client wants it in 9 foot, it can be adjustable. It's just the height which can be adjusted.
That's what Aaron was saying. Aaron was thinking like he would put the smarts, the content in one module, and then if you want height, you just literally adding extenders, like a weird Lego block.
Yep,
exactly.
Way to think about it. Yeah. And to do it much more efficiently, because the towers that we sell today, they can be up to 14 feet tall, if not taller, and shipping that stuff kind of expensive, and it's a construction project to deploy this stuff. It's not, oh, well, let me just stick it here and we're done. Like, this is a full-on good amount of effort to put in place. I think the other thing to think about is the administration passed a pretty significant infrastructure bill, and I believe there's some interesting opportunities there in terms of anything that's solar powered may have some budget opportunities. So, we're kind of thinking this through and also wanting to get some feedback from our existing clients and prospective clients as we develop and reimagine the next set of blue light towers, e-phones, and call boxes to see where we want to take this and how we can, help our clients better keep the public safe. All right, Aaron, is you got any other surprises to shock Supreet with, or are we good?
No, we didn't get our fainting, so I think we're good.
Yeah, he's still sitting in the chair.
Yeah. Little disappointed, but okay.
we gotta work on some newer stuff, Aaron. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. You're gonna start some rumor about a K20.
Exactly.
Oh.
All right, guys. Well, good to see you as always. Thanks for doing this. And I think the future is going to be very, very bright. So stick around for the next part. Apoorv and I, our new CFO, will be walking you through the updated investor deck as part of Innovation Week to put everything in context as to where Knightscope's going in the future. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey.
All right, everybody, welcome to Thursday of Innovation Week, and Apoorv and I are going to be walking through the updated investor deck with a lot of interesting, new, exciting things to talk about. So this is going to be more of like a fireside chat between the two of us to talk about the business and give you some additional insights about Knightscope. So, but before we get into it, we're going to put Apoorv on the hot seat. Why are you excited about Knightscope's future now that you've been in the hot seat, in the saddle for a few months and got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly?
I am extremely excited. The decision to join has been continues to be one that I'm excited about and I'm invigorated by. There are so many different ways we can go with Knightscope, and man, I just think, about where the company has been in the last 10 years and where we could be and where we want to be and where we will be in the next 10 years. And the future just looks nothing but bright.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. We'll move on to the next slide and talk through the quick agenda. So we're going to talk about the mission.
Yep.
Talk about a lot of things about AI and disruption with artificial intelligence in public safety. Talk about our core technology, and just as excitingly about the future and future technologies. We'll then talk about recurring revenue opportunities that now we've proven in the marketplace actually works for a recurring societal problem, as I often say. We'll recap a little bit about the team and our new board of directors, and then some forward-looking statements. We're going to talk a little bit about the outlook, and we'll wrap it up with just going through some of the products that we have in the pipeline, as well as numerous ones in production. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the mission. Knightscope, as I often have said for a very long time, it's on a long-term mission to make the United States of America the safest country in the world. And we want to emphasize that last part now by deploying groundbreaking public safety technology. I think one of the interesting things I've had over the last couple of years is just talking to a lot of equity analysts, and they have a hard time placing Knightscope. Like, hey, are you in law enforcement? Are you an autonomous self-driving thing in the automotive space? You're in security investigations. And some people put us in the telecom situation. And I think you've had that kind of experience as well, Apoorv. And I think we've all tried to now just get everyone to focus on, listen, Knightscope's a technology company, full stop, right?
That's exactly right. I think, it was kind of interesting when you and I first started talking about Knightscope, and I was doing my research. I would go on Yahoo Finance, or I'd go on NASDAQ, or I'd go on other websites, and each one of them would have a different sector or industry that we were a part of. Someone would say technology, some places would say, like you mentioned, safety and security, and other places were like, oh, this is a services company. And in my mind, I was like, there's no way our technology is the same thing as deploying a few humans or many humans to do perimeter security guards, right? As they do important work, but we don't do similar things. We get the same results, but with the way we do it, how we get those results and the outcomes are really done by robotics, by use of AI. So all of those things were reasons why I'm glad we're talking about this. We are a technology company first, and that's the main thing that we do. With that technology, we have the opportunity to service and service the safety sector, which we think is an extremely important one as the world becomes not only more integrated, but also the risks are higher.
Yep.
I think, being a technology company allows us to not only focus on the risks of today, but also then figure out how do we mitigate the risks of tomorrow. And technology companies where we should be and where we are.
And the engineer in me still gets stupid excited about the future of building new technology. So I think it plays into the team's strengths as well. So now that we've covered the mission, let's move on to the next part. So I call this the shock and awe slide. For a long time, a lot of people have heard me say, like, I've got 10, 20, 30 years worth of workload stuck in my head as to how we're going to actually do this. Yeah. And this is a good visual representation of where Knightscope is going. So on the left-hand side is primarily our existing product portfolio of autonomous security robots, blue light emergency communication devices. And then this week you've seen us talk about all kinds of new stuff in the pipeline, both software and hardware. And, we've got a future K1 super tower to kind of redefine what blue light emergency systems can be and should be. You've got the K7 prototype that we talked about earlier in the week, and cross fingers. Hopefully next year we can start taking some pre-orders for that much anticipated autonomous security robot. We've talked about, the future of law enforcement and patrolling cities and highways with the K10 and 15. And then to pull all that together, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in the presentation, is our AI mission control to pull that together to make Americans much, much safer. What do you think of this? I think the first time you're seeing this shot, what do you think?
This is amazing. I know we've talked a lot about the future vision, but seeing it in this format and seeing it kind of all come together, man, this is if I can say, this is cool. And it's cool because on
That's a
the
forward-looking statement, Apoorv.
it is a forward-looking statement. um, this shows an ecosystem of what we're trying to accomplish it and how we want to get there, right? Again, the outcome is how do we keep the country safe and how do we keep our population feel safer in the places they live, work, and play. And now you kind of have this. You have some technology here on the left hand side that's going to be more preventative and evidentiary and all that. And then you have on the other side the newer technology that's going to actually be able to help our police and our SWAT teams and our just overall response drivers and the response units just become better at what they do. Man, this is exciting.
As this gets my juices going. I mean, there's a lot of work to pull all this stuff together. I think the cool thing is it's people, cash, and time. There's nothing on the screen that's not quote unquote doable. It just requires some resources and a lot of field experience. We'll also talk about as to leveraging all the stuff that we've learned over the last decade. The upcoming years are really exciting for Knightscope. All right, so now that we talked a little bit about shock and awe, let's give a overview, and then maybe we can go through this together.
Sure.
Just kind of overview of the whole business, and kind of what I've been on the first point here is I think there's, and I've often said this for the longest of time, I think we've got a shot to build a $30 billion company that in an odd way is analogous to a defense contractor, but instead of focusing on the battlefield, why can't we build a bunch of technology and a portfolio of products and services to help the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the 19,000 law enforcement agencies, and 8,000 private security firms? Because on our own soil, we don't have that innovation engine. We don't have that leadership, nor is there a lot of risk capital to build new capabilities for the 2.5 million officers and guards. We give the 2+ million soldiers in a theater of war, like literally almost every capability that you can possibly imagine, and then stuff you probably can't imagine. But it's oddly, we don't do that on our own soil. And this is such a fragmented marketplace. And it reminds me when a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I did a roll-up in a very fragmented industry. And this looks oddly very similar to me, where there's no leadership, it's kind of the wild, wild west, everything's fragmented, and there's an opportunity to actually do a very comprehensive, unique portfolio to address the recurring issues and problems related to crime and terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And if you think about, I think I've talked about this. Crime isn't going to go away. It just evolves.
The market's not going to collapse. Like
No.
tomorrow, everyone's going to just start behaving.
Right. But I think there's another way is to think about it is that machines inherently just make us humans better, right? I think about going from early stages when people were just walking to the invention of the bicycle, right? All of a sudden with the bicycle you could move much faster. Similarly, in the 20th century we went from farming with horses and manual labor to using automobiles and tractors and all those different devices, and all of a sudden it just exponentially increased the productivity of humans. So the way humans are really good at the things that they do and the way they become better is through using machines. And you're absolutely right. This is in our minds, this has been a gap in a home front for our law enforcement, for our safety and security industry, is that we rely on humans and with not a lot of technology. Well, now we have the opportunity to provide them with the tools to exponentially increase their capabilities. And we're uniquely positioned to do it. I think that's an area that surprisingly is a huge opportunity for us.
All right, and I think one of the things that, let's talk about it up front. There's all this fear around AI and autonomy and robotics and everything else, but this is going to be a profound change to up level, to give humans superhuman capabilities. And to me, I look at it to try to make a poignant point about it. When electricity first came online, right? Could you imagine living in literally darkness for hundreds of years, and then all of a sudden there's light at night?
Yeah.
And then you find out that someone died. Electricity kills people. Like, this is dangerous. We shouldn't touch that, right? It's, probably in that time, it's the work of the devil. Like, I think society goes through this freak out situations every time when there's a fundamental, profound change in capabilities. And we're here with the same thing on AI and autonomy. This is extremely powerful. It is game changing, but the pros outweigh the cons massively. And we also need to be careful and just be thoughtful about how you roll this technology out. And that's why when we talk about our machine as a service type of business model where we control the assets, I think that also helps alleviate some of those concerns.
Bill, I'm gonna, if you don't mind, put you a little bit on a spot here. One of the things that I keep hearing, or at least reading, when it comes to our technologies, is there is a little bit of a unknown for the community. Many people in the community who are like, well, what, you're collecting all this data on us. We talk about 90 terabytes of data, right, going through. And they're wondering, well, what's happening with that data? Can you maybe talk about, or mitigate some of the concerns around, people who are worried about their face and what they're doing being somewhere on the cloud, and we're somehow, mining all that, or the government is surveillance. All of those things that I feel like are unfounded fears that come from just lack of, understanding and probably education from the AI world. What are your thoughts about, one, should that be a concern, and two, what are we doing to mitigate those concerns?
Well, since you put me on the spot, like, I'm gonna have to confess that we work for Big Brother. All these machines are coming to kill everyone and take everyone's job. So you got me. Just kidding. I think one of probably the most important things that we did early on was just the legal language and contractual obligations that we have with our clients. So just very simply, there's, in crudely speaking, there are two pieces of data, of buckets, I should say. One is we'll call it the machine health data, like I don't know how many miles you've gone, the battery cell health, the telecommunication status, that sort of stuff. It's related to the health of the robots, basically. And then there's the physical security or client-related data. And that data is actually owned by the client, not by us. And so we are not like aggregating everyone's data and then gonna turn around and monetize it and go try to use it for something else. Oftentimes our clients will let us use the data to improve our algorithms. Like, hey, you live in I'm making this up, you live in a foggy area, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, there's always this kind of weird angles when we're trying to read license plates. Can we use that data to improve our algorithms? But that's one of the really important points for us. And that's part of why we do the Robot Roadshow that we'll talk about later, why we do these webinars and the Q&A and try to engage as much as possible. Because if you don't explain and don't introduce yourself and don't introduce how the technology works, people are going to be fearful. But we're trying to be as thoughtful and careful about it, and we take this very seriously. All right, so let's move on to the next point. Let's talk about hold on. Back to
okay.
just crime in general. And a lot of folks are like, oh, well, in some areas crime is going down or whatever. But in my view, it's like society has gotten numb to the status quo. Like, you call up the FBI and they'll tell you, like, hey, listen, a property crime occurs every 4 seconds, a violent crime every 26 seconds, and 300 million Americans are like, that's okay. That's not okay. And that is my proof in the pudding that the way things are set up right now is not working. Your taxpayer dollars, the monies that security professionals go through is not effective. And that's why we want to introduce and are introducing kind of a different way to look at it, to build some new tools to tackle an age-old problem.
I love that. And I think, the other inherent benefit to this, right, is one, the technologies we pull together allow us to prevent crime, to mitigate some crime. At the same time, we also provide tools and resources for the average person within the vicinity of one of our machines to get help when they need it, right? We rely so much on cell phones these days. It used to be, 20, 30 years ago, you had these, the phone booths everywhere. If you needed help, you could just pick one up and get help. Now you can't do that. So if my cell phone dies or I don't have a signal, I have no way to get help. I blow a tire, I get hurt, I get into an accident. These machines that we have, you can just run to one, push a button, call for help. And I think that's another, benefit that's there. It just aids to the feeling of safety and our, we hear this from some of our clients who maybe not be worried as much about crime per se, but they're worried about, hey, how do I enable a feeling of safety for the people that come to my premises, people that visit my resort, my casinos, my hospital. And it just seems like that's a benefit that impacts everyone.
Right. And I think one of the other things, a couple points on the blue light technology is everyone's like, I have a cell phone, I can just make my phone. Yeah. What happens when there's no signal?
Yeah.
Like, you're in the middle of nowhere and you have either no battery or no signal or both.
Yeah.
Kind of a problem. And then the other issue is just the location. When you push that button, the municipality, the law enforcement agency, ourselves know exactly where you're calling from. There's no dispute on GPS location. And in a lot of cases with mobile devices, that's not always the case. I think we have a new generation of folks that, when there's a 911 call, they're just texting 911. And in most cases, 911 can't accept a text, and you literally need to dial and talk to somebody. And there's stuff like that people don't realize why the business continues to grow. It's because it's needed.
Yeah, it's interesting. The movies, sometimes show you make a phone call, and on the other side, they within 30 seconds, they can pinpoint where you are exactly. That's actually not the case. 911.
Not always the case. Not always the case.
So if they don't know where you are, they can't help. They don't know how to get to you, no matter how much they want to help. And if you can't give them the location, so I agree with you. I think that aspect of safety is super important and could be emphasized and should be emphasized.
We talked about the journey that Knightscope has been, and everyone's like, well, why is this taking so long or whatever? I think hopefully this week people have realized how complex and complicated the set of technologies are to not just design and engineer, but also to manufacture and then operate 24/7. And one of the things that I'm, kind of really proud of is, the team has been able to now operate this technology nearly 3 million hours across the country. And I don't know, we've gone through 8, 9 plus winters and summers, literally every time zone, including being in Puerto Rico and Alaska and Hawaii. We had a a lot of field experience, and I think that's starting to pay off for us. Coming up on nearly 10,000 machines in network, and that I think is the beginning of our long-term ambition to have millions of machines to be able to help the 2.5 million officers and guards do their jobs much more effectively. On the client side of things, we really focused on business to business early on, because business to government sales can take a very long time. But now we're starting to add that to our TAM. And the business model we're going to walk through, we've now proven it works. We've generated over $30 million of lifetime revenue. And I think one of the ones that you get excited about, Apoorv, is the moat.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 or 3 really important points here, where we've got a lot of field experience. Like, we've forgotten more than most people would ever know how to do this. This is the practical application of AI in the real world, generating millions of dollars of revenue. And we recently got our authority to operate with the US federal government, which in my personal view, believe adds billions of dollars of opportunity for our TAM, or our total addressable market. But I think that unification is the point that you've gotten really excited about, Apoorv.
Absolutely. Again, all of these technologies are only individually beneficial when they're deployed at a location. What it gets me excited is when we start to kind of put all of it together into this unified intelligence model, unified service model. So I know we'll talk about this later, but what excites me is, imagine a college campus or a corporate campus where all these technologies exist to help our, the humans do their job better, humans feel safer, and by the way, allow the administrators to be more proactive in not only mitigating crime, but also enabling safety. And that to me is just it just feels like, man, we're uniquely positioned to do it, and if we do it, holy cow.
Yeah, right people, right time, right experience, right market, right technology, right everything. Like, this gets really interesting. Okay, now you can hit slide.
I've been yes,
a little too much coffee.
That's right.
So you want to talk a little bit about the core technology as you see it from now that you've come in as a fresh face?
Absolutely. So again, artificial intelligence is going to be the core of everything we do. That's where I feel we have the ability to be the strongest at. We have information, we have data, we have publicly available data that we can leverage using AI to think about threat detection, threat mitigation, right? Safety propagation is the underlying feature of what we want to do. I think about, for example, on college campuses, using our technology to figure out, where maybe there is a bunch of people getting together, knowing whether they're getting together because they're just celebrating something, or there's a fight about to break out, or a riot about to break out, and you can tell that, right? Yet I can tell you, rising body temperatures, right?
Facial expressions. You can do the crowd expression. Yep.
Yes.
Emotion.
Right. And imagine being, as an administrator, being able to say, oh man, I need to send someone there because that's something either good is happening or bad is happening, and I got to figure out how to be proactive versus reactive. So those are the things that I'm excited about with the AI that's coming on. And again, like you said, it's the see, feel, hear, smell, speak, and cooperate, and then allow the humans to exponentially be better at their jobs. That is, I think, has to be the underlying technology that we build a company on.
So we've got at the tail end of this, we'll go through all the products in more detail, but we've gotten a bit of criticism, both internally and externally, that, hey, Bill, like, you've got too many SKUs. There's too many products. You should just focus on one thing. And because we're in this for the long term, and we're not looking to just get a quick win, I think there's two things to think about. One, no one's in the history of mankind has done this before. So you're not sure which is going to actually work. So having a slightly wider portfolio gives you an opportunity to place multiple bets. So that's kind of in the long-term interest of our shareholders and long-term value creation. I think second, you always want to go see a prospective client, and as often as possible, try to say yes. And the wider the portfolio, knowing how busy these chief security officers are and chiefs and sheriffs, someone that can be a turnkey trusted partner with a portfolio of solutions gets really interesting. And trying to risk mitigation in terms of what works and doesn't work. And then lastly, just people get sick and tired of me saying it, but criminals and terrorists can be anywhere. If we're going to be successful, we kind of need to be everywhere as well. So I think that kind of explains why the portfolio is as large as it is, and it's going to continue to grow.
I think so I can tell you, I've had, similar, again, when we first started talking, I would look through the company and I thought about it the same way. And then I think the reason behind that level of thinking is really, hey, you're a young company. You don't have unlimited resources like some of the peers that are out there or some of the larger companies that are in this space. How do you use your resources effectively to be successful, right? And I think that is a valid point. I mean,
Yep.
The more variability you have in your process, the more customization you have in your process, the more changes you have to make to meet client requirements. It all means that you are now no longer, or at least you have challenges in scaling. And I think the real thing to think about is that the company has actually thought about this, and the way we met a couple of days ago, and you're talking about how the tower has some of the same technology as the robots. Then you guys decided to do the hemisphere, which has the same technology as the robots, but the robots have a bit more. So the way, in my mind, what makes this really amazing and cool is that, yes, we have different SKUs, but the underlying technology, the underlying thought process around them is similar, right? We take the hemisphere, which is a wall-mounted camera system with a lot more intelligence. We take the same thing and we put it into the robots, and the robots have and then we add, wheels and more intelligence and a few more things, and make it way more, comprehensive. And just a better tool.
And then yep. And exactly what you're getting at, we're going to talk a little bit more on the Outlook section, because I think what you're getting at is different architectures, and then being able to build off of that kind of same platform multiple different products. So we're gonna deep dive that a little bit later. So
Okay,
why don't we keep going?
Yep. So then obviously, the way then you have the two portfolios, right? The ASR portfolio, the K1B portfolio. The ASR portfolio really is more geared towards, in my mind, the robots that are there to mitigate risk, right? They're there to be a threat detection tool. They're there to be a tool that, if someone, surveillance tool for the perimeter, where we've seen this before, where, I think I had a use case from one of the clients we talked about, where they said, hey, your robot allowed us to basically secure a perimeter in such a way that people that were just loitering would no longer loiter, because they would see the robot, and the robot would, say some things, and it would be such an imposing figure that the loiters would move on. And that to them was valuable. So I think the robot does that. And then the K1B portfolio, I think you said this again, is that the idea of being available to provide help and safety when and where you need it. So if we have our call boxes along highway corridors, we have them on college campuses, we have them on corporate campuses. If my cell phone doesn't work, if I need help, I have a place to go. I push a button, they know exactly where I am, and they can help me out. That, I think, completes the picture. And then obviously the software that goes underneath all of that drives all of this, collaboration between the two portfolios allows us to build this ecosystem of solutions that I think no one can match.
So you look back, when we started 10 years ago, like we didn't have any of this. We didn't have any clients, any technology or anything, and now we're sitting here. We have a portfolio of capabilities. It is just invigorating, and now we get to build on it. So let's move on to the next slide. And this one I think is dear to your heart and to mine. And basically the premise is something like this. Robots will be everywhere. Anyone who thinks that robots are not going to be everywhere, like you're going to end up with a slightly rude robotic awakening shortly, because these machines are going to be everywhere. And so if you think about it from a 911 dispatch standpoint, from a security operations standpoint, the industry at large is not well equipped, and this includes the federal, state and local governments, to be able to manage and utilize all these technologies. And with the power of AI to unify all this, brings a fascinating opportunity for us to be able to consolidate and control on one platform for all things autonomous, and allow these machines to cooperate. And what I mean by that is, let's say you had, 1,000 robots, drones, dogs, devices, and what have you. There's no way you're going to be able to staff a bunch of humans to okay, I think, robot 7 and dog 22 should go do whatever. It's going to be an impossibility. You're going to need, as crazy as this is going to sound, these individually autonomous machines to be able to cooperate with each other and propose a mission or propose and recommend a plan for them to help mitigate whatever situation the officer or guard might need. And that gets really, really interesting.
The other part of this is, I think, where there may be a disconnect between the idea that robots will be everywhere versus the people that are surprised by this. I think the other part is lack of, education in the market, is that the companies that are building these robots, they're doing it to kind of push the robots into the marketplace. The reality in my mind is it's a pull. There is a real need for robots, right? We've talked to we were talking to one of our board members the other day who was saying, the industries that I work in, we don't have enough people to do the jobs that we are willing to pay them for, right? So we talked about mining, where they don't have enough truck drivers to drive the trucks back and forth. In farming, they don't have enough hands to help drive the farming work that needs to be done, even though they're willing to pay the prevailing wages that are available. People just don't want to do the work, that kind of backbreaking work. Similarly, it was kind of, what really interested me was when he talked about the golf courses, how golf courses are worried that they're not going to have enough people to mow the grass. And that's a real problem. That's a business problem to solve, right? If you can't get the humans that you're willing to pay to do the job because they're either not willing or able, or it's no longer, the type of work that humans want to do, well, robots are the perfect, supplement to that. Similarly, in I think our space, you talked about 2.5 million people, or individuals, whether it's the police department or safety, security industry, servicing 300 million people across, millions of properties that are out there. That is a tremendously hard task. And then we've talked to cities where you've said, they've told us that, they can't find police officers. We've talked to people where they've said, hey, they can't find security guards to do the job because it's just feels mundane or not cool enough, and there's other opportunities. Well, so that need continues to be there, and this, again, need for safety is going to continue to be there. If we don't bring robots in, then what fills that gap? And I think That's the part I think that gets missed in this robots will be everywhere. There's a real need. Humans are designed to do better things. We don't get excited about doing the same repetitive things over and over and over and over again. Robots can do that without complaining, without getting sick, without getting tired, without needing a vacation.
They do complain though.
They do complain.
Ask our K-Knock team. They do complain.
Maybe your system is too good, you know?
To your point, ask the mayor of the largest city in the country. It's public information, losing 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 officers a year. And it's not like the crime problem is going away. The budget's there, but the people aren't there. And there needs to be a different way. That has to be solved a different way. And we've, as a country, proven for decades that the current status quo is not working. It's not working for the communities. It's not working for the officers or the guards or the mayors or the city council people. And we need to find a new path. And now that we've proven that there's a new path to work, we need to just get the word out and scale this up. But I think building this new software autonomy platform to help our clients and ourselves manage all these machines and network with the thoughtful use of AI is going to make things really interesting. And there's something at the bottom there that I stuck in that I've been wanting to do for the longest of time is you had proposed, considered, we obviously should have different user levels, which is, kind of standard in a software application for administrators, and certain roles and responsibilities. No one has to have all the information, and depending on your role. And I always drive by these little signs in almost every part of the country. It says Neighborhood Crime Watch, right? And you drive by that sign and you're like, exactly what does that mean? Grandma's on the porch, kind of looking out, like you've got no teeth to that whatsoever. And I live in a subdivision with an HOA, and not that my neighbors want to, be CSI all day long, but they do genuinely care about their community. They don't necessarily have the tools other than maybe their doorbell camera, and something happens and there's no way to coordinate anything. There's no way to, properly get data to the right location. And we should build, and I hope there's an opportunity for us to do this, the equivalent of a community app or something that allows the crowdsourcing of having the crowd address the crime issue. Because once we do this, all these robots and all these machines and all these humans are still not going to be able to address every little single thing. But if you can empower a neighborhood or a school or a facility, imagine you go to a corporate client and say, all right, you're going to have your 10,000 employees download this app. And if there's a problem, they get to input and immediately get assistance. I think that's going to be extremely powerful, and as importantly for our investors, extremely sticky.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep going. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot, Apoorv. We're going to play Where's Waldo?
Okay.
We're asking for a concept of operations or an ecosystem of how these machines could be viewed in the world. And it was all kind of hard to put it on one diagram. Yeah. So there are a dozen Knightscope machines and devices here, and you're going to have to point out every single one of them. Are you ready?
Is there a time limit on this? I hope not.
Yeah, I'm gonna time you. Ready? So you gotta start from the from wherever you want, and I'm gonna start counting, and we're gonna play Where's Waldo. You ready? Go.
I got this. Okay, let's do this. I'm gonna start from the right and then move left.
Okay.
So right off the bat, we got the K7 right here. No?
That's a K10 patrol vehicle.
Oh,
K7 goes
K10.
on.
No.
K7
that's-
goes on private roads. K10
Love it.
goes on
Okay.
city.
Okay. So we got one of
Okay, we got one.
We got one. We got the tower right here.
K1 tower, two.
Right.
Yeah.
We got the K1 right here.
Hemisphere, yeah,
The
three.
hemisphere, yep. We have the call box, the K1B right here.
But you're missing a piece.
Uh,
That little thing at the top of it where you were,
uh-huh.
that's automated gunshot detection.
Oh, right here.
No. Where you were, to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left, the other left. There you go. Keep going. Where the K1 blue light tower,
Okay.
that little extension above the
Oh, right
solar
here.
panel, that's the automated gunshot detection.
That's amazing. Okay, we that's cool. I thought that's a new one that I did not. I know you had it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You did. Okay. That you snuck that one in there.
This is a hazing for the new employer. The robot hazing. So you got
I see the
1,
K-
2, 3, 4. Okay, now next.
K5, right?
K5, that's 5.
Yep. Now you got the super tower right here,
Yep, that's 6.
right? You got the E phone right here.
That's 7.
You got the K7, which is
There you go. That's 8.
8, right? This is a call box as well.
Yeah, that's 9. That's an E phone. Yep.
Okay. Then you got another tower right here.
Yep. And remember, for the automated gunshot detection to work, so this is super hyper local, needs to
Okay.
be 200 feet apart. You don't just put one.
Okay.
You have to put an array in order
Yeah.
to do the localization of the sound.
You have to triangulate the sound. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then you have on top. I want to move to the second level. Oh, you have the. What is this? This is kind of interesting.
Is that a drone?
What is this?
That's a drone, I think.
Whoa, that is interesting. I like how you placed it, so it kind of blends into the.
It's Where's Waldo?
All right, and then you have the call box here.
The K1 call box. Yep.
Yep. That looks like one of the machines that you're trying to build in your ecosystem slide.
Yep. That's
I don't
the
recall what the.
K15 tactical.
Okay, K15 tactical.
All right. So
Is that
we're gonna
all
give you
of
a.
them?
You're gonna get a passing grade. You passed the Where's Waldo test.
I love it. That was,
All right.
The drone one definitely got me. I think the rest of them I was gonna get, but this one was slick.
It was hard to get. Kudos to our chief design officer. He did this
Yeah.
last minute to try to get everything into one shot, which is really hard. But to play the game, it worked out. All right. So next one.
Now
Next
I know
slide.
why you didn't want me to preview the slides.
Exactly. All right. If you mess up this one, we're gonna have an issue. So Where's Waldo here? You've got how many devices?
I see 3. I see the tower. I see the K3 robot, ASR robot, and I see the hemisphere.
There you go. So that's kind of the indoor concept of operations. Alrighty.
Okay.
You passed the Where's Waldo test. We
I
can
love
move on to the next slide.
Do I get? I feel like I should get a shirt or something that says
You get a scanner.
I get a
You've been whining about getting a scanner. You get a scanner. Okay, so there's a lot of ways to try to define or quantify a total addressable market. You can look at, I think Bank of America did an assessment years ago where it was about $500 billion gets spent on security globally. Probably 200 of that on cyber. I'm sure it's much more now, and 300 billion on the balance. I took a different view of trying to figure out how to do this and using a proxy of human guards and officers. And I think a poor view had a disagreement or a different perspective on these ratios, so I intentionally didn't change them so we can have this conversation.
Okay.
So the way I kind of viewed things was, and how to read this, I just picked half a dozen verticals on the left,
Okay.
and then at the time, estimated how many officers and guards are tied to that particular vertical.
Yeah.
And then in a lot of cases, despite what people think, everyone's like, oh, you're going to replace all these officers and guards. We don't have enough officers and guards in our country to do the job. And we just covered
Right.
that earlier. Not in the mood for replacing things. We want to augment. So near term, and the near term could be, 3, 4, 5, 7 years, what is the percent augmentation? Just arbitrarily take 2% and say, I think at least 2% of the numbers on the left are going to need or want, probably need, a robot in some form or manner. And so if you total that out at the bottom, that's about 36,000. And then maybe long term, and then we can argue what long term is, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 20 years, I don't know. We'll find out. But
Probably be shorter, I think.
What's that?
I think it'll be a lot shorter than that. I think, the next 5 to 7 years, you're going to see a huge need for augmentation to occur.
I think you're right. One of our executives has often said that we're too early. And I asked her recently, and she's like, "Yep, I think we're about the right time now." So let's say arbitrarily 20% need a augmentation and enhancement. So that's 360,000 machines across the country. And then we took some arbitrary, semi-arbitrary revenue potential for each, and then kind of totaled up the quote-unquote near-term opportunity of $4 billion of recurring revenue, and then perhaps longer term $40 billion.
Wow.
And so I think you had an issue with the mix, which we should talk about, and then since this is getting recorded, 10 years from now, we're gonna rewind the tape and see what happened.
You're really putting me on the spot today.
Oh yeah. So what was the mix that you were concerned about?
The mix that I was concerned about was really on the law enforcement side, right? If you look at the opportunity here, long-term opportunity, right? We talk about $41 billion, and 30 of that comes in from law enforcement. And my I think question to you and the team when we started having this conversation was, I think the top side makes a lot of sense. The law enforcement side is just a different. The TAM is there, or could be there. However, the way you go to market is just very, very seemingly complicated. Complicated because law enforcement agencies typically tend to be tied to some municipality or some type of a government agency, which has a very bureaucratic process in place, which is deliberately designed to be slow and very thoughtful in everything they do, because the decisions municipalities and governments at the state level or even the US level make have long-term impact. And so they're very thoughtful about what they do. So just the sales cycle, just the onboarding cycle is extremely long and thoughtful. And by the way, sometimes while the municipalities are making those decisions or the law enforcement agencies are making those decisions, in comes a new politician, because there's this cycle of new the re-elections that occur. So in that, the new person in charge might come in and say, I don't like this because this is not going to get me enough votes, because people are worried, because I'd rather have butts in seats than robots, even though they're more effective, because butts in seats gives me more voting, more votes, because I can go tout that, right? And those are the dynamics that I was concerned about, and I continue to be concerned about, is how do we go after a TAM that's not designed for innovation. And I feel bad for saying it, but it's just not designed to take in innovation the way that the commercial market is. And where we see, you and I have been talking about this, right? Majority of our clients today tend to be on the commercial side. So can we lean into that? And the 30 billion TAM is amazing. It's just that it'll be a lot longer, and maybe in the long term this works, but it just feels like, we maybe it's still a little bit too early for those guys, and that was my perspective, and I'm happy to, I know you had some.
Listen, we're partners in this, and if we always agree 100% of the time, then one of us is not necessary, right? Like, it doesn't, and it's good to have that healthy debate. And this is, us speculating what's going to happen in the future, which is, part of the fun part. I come at this from a completely different angle because of what has happened over the last 10 years. I think first I look at, the progress that Taser/Axon has made and being able to rinse and repeat almost exclusively in this law enforcement sector. Second, I think you're right, it is political. And at some point, and I think it's starting now, communities and neighborhoods like, hey, what the hell are you doing? This is not working. Why am I at risk of being shot or killed going to work, going to school, or going to a movie theater? I think budget, if you want to know, and you know this, how the world works is just follow the money. And so one crude example for you that might be helpful for the audience. So let's say you're in, I don't know, pick a major city, Chicago, and you want to run one vehicle for law enforcement to patrol 24/7. Right? People are like, it's a, $50,000 car and one officer, and you're fine. Well, let's add up the math real quick. So you go buy I call it the equivalent of a rental car because it's not a purpose-built law enforcement vehicle. Someone's got to now go crazy glue and Velcro the lights and the CB radio and all that other stuff. And by the time you're done, you're 60, 70, 80,000 bucks in. Then you're going to run this vehicle 24/7 that eats up a lot of gasoline, and you're going to pay that fuel bill. And then the maintenance and service that goes with it. And in most major cities, it's dangerous enough that you have to run two up, meaning two officers. You can't triple shift a human. So in order to run 24/7 for one patrol, you actually need 8 humans, 8 officers, with the pension liability and all the requisite costs that go with that. If you add that up, it's over $1 million a year to run that one vehicle across the city. Like, we can botch this massively and not be anywhere near 7 figures. And so I think the driver is going to be, you've got something that can help prevent crime and give the officers a lot more capability to be in multiple locations at the same time. But then the cost benefit is going to be really hard to walk away. And like, even for the hemisphere today, I'm like, it's 75 cents an hour. If your people are your most important asset, why aren't you using the latest technologies to keep them safe? At 75 cents an hour, you have basically literally no excuse. So I think the economics, the politics are going to be in our favor. And now that we start creeping into getting into the federal government space, and part of this is also political on just leadership, right? If the federal government starts using it, and then especially in law enforcement, NYPD, LAPD, a few other large agencies start picking it up and using it, a lot of the agencies end up following. Is it going to be, super easy? No, I'll concede that point. But I think we're going to roll the tape back in 2034 and see what happens.
All right.
All right, deal.
It's amazing.
So this one I think is super fascinating, actually, on literally the same point we were just talking about, which is law enforcement agencies. So our first law enforcement agency client was the Huntington Park Police Department. The mayor and the city council, along with the chief, kind of drove this. And time just flies, Apoorv. They literally recently renewed for their 5th year.
Right.
Half a decade for a law enforcement agency to find value in what we're doing. And one of the great things, no cost to taxpayers. We recently upgraded them from the 3.9 version machine that you see in the middle there to the lower left, fifth generation.
From here to here.
Yep, to fifth generation all new machine. And I couldn't be more proud to do that upgrade with them, and that's what our clients enjoy. Is we ship new, software every couple of weeks, new hardware every 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and the technology just keeps getting better and better and better as we learn more and more. And this slide also I love because 10 years ago we were told, hey, you're out of your mind, this will never work, and now you've got actual results,
right?
With real statistics, with full paying revenue generating clients that have renewed for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And that's where building on this foundation for the coming years gets really excited. This is not some pipe dream, not some science fair project. It's not a demo, it's not a test. This is practical use and application of artificial intelligence and robotics in the real world, having an impact. And I think this gets me really excited and fascinated, frankly, that our theory has now been proven true.
That's a great slide. I love these use cases, and the results are evident.
So that will only help us with the recurring revenue, right? You've got a problem that you can solve, and clients are willing to pay for it. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So this is our machine as a service business model, and on the right hand side is kind of what our clients go through. In a lot of cases, some folks don't understand that you kind of need to go through a bit of a process, and frankly, we've learned a lot. We've got a proprietary checklist of 150 items now that need to be covered before a deployment gets certified. And that proprietary list is our knowledge based on our experience, or banging our head against the wall and making mistakes and like, yeah, don't do that again, right? And so we go through a needs assessment, make sure we're selling to a client that actually has a problem that we can solve, and the team is authorized to literally turn away business for folks that are, kind of just kicking the tires or want a shiny object and don't really have a use case. The team will do a kind of virtual assessment, do a demo online, and then in a lot of cases, we'll talk about this later, get a chance to see the machines in real life with the Robot Roadshow. We'll do a technical actual site survey. Are the sidewalks big enough? Or the patrol route the correct one? What is the problem that you have? Can we technically do this? What's the telecom status there? Then you got to deploy the stuff. I always wish we could just put the machines in a box, ship it, and just tell the client, just open the box and press go, but not yet. So this takes a lot of work to get all this set up, and the clients trained. The training becomes a challenge because remember, in the security industry especially, it's 100 to 400% employee turnover rates. So there's a new security team every 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And so it's gotten so bad that we hold a weekly open to all our existing clients training and retraining sessions, because they're going through people like crazy, which is a good indicator of kind of the status of the industry. So once you ship a machine, you're probably, depending on how complicated the location is, 3 to 5 days on site, and then crudely speaking, maybe 3 to 5 days off site, meaning you're remotely debugging and testing and making sure everything's working properly. But that machine as a service business model is all inclusive. So we don't sell the hardware, we don't sell the software, all the decals, logistics, deployment, all that stuff's included. And that helps us not only from a recurring revenue standpoint, but also the technology changes so fast that selling product outright, is going to be kind of not valid a few months later, is not good. From a cybersecurity standpoint, because those assets are still on our balance sheet, you're not going on eBay to buy one of these.
Right.
The risk of someone, breaking into them is a lot higher and difficult, especially since we're monitoring all the machines 24/7 across the country, as our own clients are. And then the risk of intellectual property theft is also significantly reduced, again, because we're not selling these outright. And given the sensitivity of what we work on, public safety, law enforcement, and security, that gives our clients a lot of comfort.
I agree. It's an exhaustive list of all the things we do to ensure the deployment is successful, that the clients are seeing value from day one at post deployment. And I think, as you talked about this earlier, this has not been done before. So making sure that we, handhold the client and walk them through how the deployment and mitigate any of the concerns and risks around how do I make this happen, I think is going to be very important. And I think as we keep doing this, again, it's going to come down to education. It's going to continue to keep down to innovation on our side and the customer side. But I love that this slide is on this, because I think it just shows the level of work our teams do to ensure a successful deployment.
There's a little bit of sympathy and empathy that goes along with supporting our clients. Like if you spend enough time with someone in a security operations center or a chief security officer or a chief or a sheriff, I mean, their days are horrifying.
Yeah.
The amount of workload that they have. I had one CSO show me his phone, and here are all the alerts that I've just gotten, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And they don't have time to go set up the robot maintenance service division to go support this new technology. And I think technology is going to grow so fast over the coming years, and I know for a fact none of these organizations are well equipped to handle that monstrous change. They're going to need to rely on a technology provider that's trusted to help them manage all this stuff, because it's not like there's not a robot maintenance service division at each law enforcement agency and private security firm. There's not an AI tools integrator. There's not any of that stuff, or being able to pick the equipment and technology and then have it useful for them. So I think having that as a service, everyone focuses on the machine, but the service part is really important and also very difficult.
Agreed.
Alrighty. So this one, the lawyers are going to want us to make sure that this is an illustrative example, notional. And we've shown this slide or similar versions of it for years. And it basically says you've got high, I call it luxury automotive per unit economics, meaning you're kind of buying a brand new Tesla every year. But the margins in the out years end up looking like a software as a service business. You're not doing 99-cent downloads from the App Store. Like, this is significant dollars. But it does create some significant costs in the beginning, right? You have to go build these machines. And then you need to service and support them and upgrade them over the years. So the bill of material cost and the labor going into the machine is important, but the operating costs in the out years is as important, in some cases more important, to make sure that you can have these machines running 24/7, and that ends up being kind of interesting. And I think we recently did an internal analysis with our most successful clients, and the numbers are quite attractive, I'll say.
Yeah, this is the interesting part about this one, our business model, the machine as a service business model, which you know, if you look at this slide, the numbers, as you mentioned, are illustrative only, so they don't represent, it's a mix and it's an average. But the interesting part is that if you look at the cash in versus cash out, right? If it costs me, in this case, building the machine and servicing the machine about, $60,000 to do so, well, I recoup the entire cost within about 2 years. And I think, that, and then the rest of the time that the robot is in functional or it's in service, it's really providing the benefit to the client, but also benefit to the company. And by the way, the other part that excites me about this, if I can circle back to the initial few slides, was that this is just on the robot itself, right? We haven't even brought in the ancillary revenue opportunities, monetization opportunities that come from our ability to provide, other software-based services, software-based solutions that clients can pay for and basically upgrade or enhance their ability to provide safety at their perimeter and their area of focus. So I think this is where it gets really exciting in the long term, is that, once we have the machines up and running and they're operating kind of systematically, it's a no-brainer that this business model works, and it's a no-brainer that the profitability is going to be there.
And then for investors, it's kind of really important to understand you're kind of layering subscription on top of subscription on top of subscription. So you got this kind of waterfall effect, or it's like adding an annuity along the way.
Yeah.
But there is a fixed cost at the bottom that you need to cover in order to be able to build the technology, to engineer it, to design it, to operate it. So the rough example I always use, okay, so we have a staff called the KNOC, the Knightscope Network Operations Center, and it runs 24/7, and you have to staff it in order to make sure that you cover all the machines across the country. And if there's an issue or the machines are complaining or there's a service call or whatever, that gets handled. Just because you added another second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, 20th client doesn't mean you're doubling that staff, right? So there's that fixed basis that requires some scale to end up covering that cost. But then there's some efficiencies when you get to effectively some economies of scale to be able to continue to build on the business.
Absolutely. And I think, again, this model is kind of interesting because, it's not a GAAP model, right? It's not following generally accepted accounting principles, because you have all the cash outflow in year one. And generally what you would do is, because we bring it on as an asset on our books, we depreciate over the course of the life of the economic life of the unit. And those economics tend to be a little bit different. But I think it illustrates a good point, which is the cash outlay versus the opportunity for future revenue on these things is so much greater. And then the other part of this whole thing is that, what we see is that when we go to clients, the ability to provide a greater client experience that leads to expansion of services, expansion of products, that leads to continued renewals, and you've seen those. And once you start to go down that path, the cumulative impact of all of those things can yield a much greater return for us as a company in the long term, and our investors actually in helping us create value. But it does require a lot of investment today. It does require us to continue to invest today, not only in technology, but also in the production, also in the hard tech assets that we build.
I think one of the exciting things was that you included in the initial blog that you had done reacting to the roadmap to profitability. We had done that analysis of the most successful clients that we've had for 5+ years, and just looking at that, we're pretty close to here in terms of the actual cash on cash margins, if you want to call it that. And to me, that's so exciting to have actual results match what we had planned to do, and now we just genuinely need to scale up the revenue, get the variable costs down even lower, and continue to lower our fixed costs. But that's why we're bullish about our future.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep it going. So the Robot Roadshow. So you got to see the pod in person.
Yep.
What did you think of the pod? And then I can give you the kind of the backstory here.
I thought it was amazing. So it's kind of interesting, right? You and I have known each other for a few years now, and I've been following the Knightscope journey well before we started to work together. And I would see these pods kind of pop up on my LinkedIn or some of my social media feed where you would talk about this, and I always thought it was interesting that you had this mobile pod to go as a marketing tool, and I was wondering how effective is it. What I didn't realize is just how much innovation is in this pod itself. So on the picture that you see on the top left, it looks like a small box that goes from place to place. But then when I saw it, you guys had it expanded out. It looks so
a transformer.
It really is. It's so innovative and it's so large, and the fact that it can fit all of the robots and all the services and solutions that we have as a mobile showcase, the demo unit essentially, right? And I love that the team uses technology like Zoom, like video conferencing, to get real-time access to our employees and our sales teams and our services team to ask questions and answer them. I thought that was a brilliant way to showcase our products, and a brilliant way to make it such that instead of coming to the potential customers having to come to us, we go to them.
Yeah, this is our own proprietary mobile trade show.
Right.
I think we're trying to solve two problems. One is no one in the history of mankind has done this before, so we tried all kinds of different sales processes, some more successful than others, and we're trying to get something that's obviously a lot more repeatable, like where we are now. The other problem was when COVID hit, none of the team was getting on a plane to go see a client.
Right.
We're effectively categorized as essential services, so we need to continue to operate. And so how are you going to get in front of a prospective client who's having issues hiring security guards at the hospital during the middle of a global pandemic? And so I came up with this idea, like, hey guys, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get this robot aquarium and we're gonna stick it with a bunch of robots. And our team can be pretty creative and innovative and stuff, and they're like, Bill, you're out of your mind, this is not gonna work. I'm like, no, we're gonna try it. And I'm thinking it might last for 3 or 6 months, and now we've done, I forgot what Stacy told me, 100, 112, 120 stops across the country for multiple years, and it's because it's been effective. And the story goes something like this: if you go meet someone and a prospective client, and they go through this, here are my issues, here's my budget and authority, and we go, yeah, well, I think we can help you. We'll go through the demo online. They still have to go convince other folks to. It's not like you're changing the locks in the building and the chief security officer can just sign it and be done with it. Like, you got to have a conversation with 3 people, 7 people, a dozen people. And in one case, this went to the board of directors of a $50 billion company. I mean, it's insanity. So who's involved? HR wants to have a discussion. IT wants to have a discussion. Facilities wants to have a discussion. Purchasing, finance, legal, the brand team, the marketing team, the executives. I mean, so it becomes so much easier where you do a demo, and then they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm gonna need to get the city council and the mayor to take a look or whatever. It's like, hey, how about we drop these robots at your doorstep in 45 days?
Right.
And so where we end up going, and people are like, well, how come, sometimes you're doing this across the country? And it's because it's driven by the sales process is where do we think we have a prospective client that can host the location? We need 6, 7 parking spaces, and that's pretty much it. Everything's self-sufficient. And then you drop the pod there, and then the entire C-suite can come down, be able to touch, see, feel, kind of understand things. And then on the screens, like massive screens inside, is a telepresence, sales executive there. Hey, nice to see you again, right? This is really important. Not nice to meet you. Nice to see you again. Let me follow up from our discussion, etc. And it becomes a fascinating way to get some buy-in and understanding. And in a lot of cases, we have schools or students or media or investors want to come see, and in almost all cases it's public. Sometimes we have to do kind of off the grid demos for some clients that are a lot more concerned about what they're up to. But this has blown my expectations of how long we would use it and how effective it's been.
No, it's a great, again, I think it just reflects the company's culture and thoughtfulness in how it innovates, or how you get the team to innovate when it comes to various ways we go to market, the various ways we go build technology, and the various ways we go and try to service the client.
And it brings the kid out of everyone. The probably most hilarious one was we brought it to Washington, D.C. a couple of times, and spending a lot of time with kind of pretty serious federal sector, senior folks who are all kind of, very conservative and professional and everything else. And 5 minutes in the pod, then they're like, hey, let's do the robot selfie, and calling in their family, bringing their kids. It's just hilarious to watch the impact that a robot can have, and literally brings the kid out of everyone.
These robots, I love how they are. They're just so, they just feel like they're just gentle souls when you get in front of one. I do feel that way. They come up to you, they'll stop, right, because of the proximity sensors, and literally you can at that point, interact with them in such a way that feels like you're just, I do feel that the kid does come out, definitely.
Yep. Alrighty. So this one, I think is a huge opportunity for us, and I think part of the market doesn't understand exactly what's happened, but it's taken a 3-year, very exhaustive process with the U.S. federal government to go through a very rigorous cybersecurity assessment. And I think a couple of very positive things have happened. One, we finally, thanks to the team's relentless nature, got our authority to operate with our sponsors, our client, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, which is actually a very good segue for us because we were in a lot of healthcare facilities across the country, and this would be one on federal property. So we've got the first machine built, going to deploy here shortly, and we're hopeful to be able to help our friends at the VA. And then separately, we've been spending a lot of time kind of understanding where else we can be helpful in the federal space, and that could be, having deep conversations with the TSA, or the Customs and Border Protection. Or what about the GSA? This is the landlord, affectionately, the landlord for the 10,000 federal buildings. Okay, well, who secures those 10,000 federal buildings? Well, the Federal Protective Services of, I think it's 13 to 15,000 officers and guards trying to protect those federal facilities. And you just keep going on. It's like, well, have you talked to USPS? The U.S. Postal Service kind of looks like FedEx or UPS, and there's got a lot of logistics stuff. Maybe there's an opportunity there. Who secures NASA? What about the Social Security Administration? You just go on and on. 400 plus federal courthouses that the Marshal Service has to secure. I forgot, I think it's maybe 9 major warehouses that FEMA has, and the list just goes on and on and on. The opportunity here is for us to take all the learnings from the private sector and bring it to the public sector. And I think that's gonna be a very, very large, important, medium to long-term opportunity. The government does take time. I think back to the earlier slide of how fast the private sector moves versus the law enforcement agencies and the like. But I was talking to our director of software engineering that along with our CISO and head of software engineering had worked on getting through the ATO, and I'm like, hey, we got our foot in the door. It's
Right.
like, we didn't get our foot in the door. We're whole body is in the door. Like, we're going for it. And in a lot of cases, I think to wrap this part up is I think it created and forced the organization to mature.
Right.
We're here in Silicon Valley hacking our way through all this stuff, and there's a lot of processes you need to put in place in order to get through something like this.
Right.
And then I took a lot of criticism from a lot of folks for going down this path because, one, it's very costly and extremely resource intensive. But now you start looking at the cybersecurity questionnaires that before you didn't used to get, but now you get, and it's not 10 questions,
Right.
it's hundreds of questions. And
Right.
these are major healthcare facilities, financial institutions, massive retailers, and the like. And crazy enough, the requirements from the private sector are starting to near what effectively the VA and the federal government had asked us to do. So thankfully, we made this investment so that we can continue to grow and operate in the private sector with these new levels of cybersecurity. And it's basically now, it's a cost of doing business. This is a cost center. It's an abyss of money and time, but it's not optional.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this that you're, I think, trying to say is this is a huge investment on our side, but it also is to support that opportunity that you talked about, right, earlier in the TAM. And in a way, what's interesting about this is that it's because it is so difficult, because it is so challenging to go through the FedRAMP approval process. Two things occur. One, you have, apart from the government agencies that now feel better about using our technology, you can now go to corporations that are just as concerned about their security and their processes, and they can now rely on this. They can say, oh wow, you've gotten through this one, ours is just as good, if not and just as rigorous, and now we feel comfortable and confident that you can pass our tests and our questionnaires and all that. And the last part is, because it is so exhaustive and cost intensive and time intensive, it creates a kind of a moat for us, as you talked about earlier, right?
Yep.
The barrier to entry to get through this, not everyone has a FedRAMP approval. And the fact that the young company that we are with, the type of technology that we're trying to bring to the market, can do this and can get that is a huge testament to just the value that we intend to provide and that we can provide, and it seems like it's getting validated, by the government.
I'll make a confession here. I think if we weren't so adamant on our long-term mission, there's no way we should have done this, right? This is a long-term bet, but if you're looking to just boost the next quarter, and be kind of more short-term sighted, etc.
Yeah.
One would never do this. And your point is exactly right. There is now a moat. There is a sole provider of autonomous security robots at the U.S. federal government level. sole provider. And I think this is going to make things very interesting in the coming years.
Absolutely. And speaking of coming years, I'd love to hear your take on and your thoughts on the leadership team that's going to take us there.
Well, we're all good except the new guy there is just all trouble. It is just all trouble. I look at the management team and I still am in shock. One, that we got, someone of your caliber who spent time at GE, took a company public, actually knows what a Reg A is, and is willing to dig in with an, Ivy League education. But, the first 4 people there were literally the original management team from 2013. And, a lot of founders are, got to screw loose. And to find a bunch of relentless people that are willing to follow you and build and continue to drive and deal with all the negativity, stupidity, mistakes, and just keep getting up every morning and dust ourselves off and back in the ring. Like, that takes a certain type of person. And then, the Jason and Ronnie have now been with us, both of them well over half a decade, and have grown the company and have grown themselves as executives. And now we have a very lean, highly motivated, focused management team. And now you've gotten a chance to work with some of these crazy folks, and would love your perspective.
I agree. I think, so it's an interesting, there's two parts to this conversation. The next slide is also one I'm excited to have you talk about, is, a company, and a successful company in my mind is one where you have a team of people that are core, that are there driving the long-term mission, right? And to drive the long-term mission, you need to, find the right people that are there for the long haul, right? Because this is just one of those processes. It's so interesting that sometimes you see, companies that have kind of that churn, and when you have churn, it's like a project management scenario where a new person comes in, the project has to be changed, and the project has to be, could derail. The fact that this team, the core team of 4 that you have, that's been the same, and it's the same mission, the same values, the same culture drivers are pushing the company forward. I think that speaks volumes again to the confidence you have, the people that are willing to support this mission, right? The other part of this is, which I'd love to go into the next slide, is, to go from 0 to the first, 10, 12 million we got in the last decade. This is the team that you believe in. This is also the team that you think you're looking at to get you from, 10 million to 100 million. Well, I'd love to understand, what else do you need? And I know you've made some changes, and we've got some exciting board members that I'd love to go into. Talk to me about what these board members, can I, is it okay if I go into that slide?
Yeah, go for it.
And maybe you can talk to us about how your thoughts were in terms of getting a board that's going to then be fundamental in getting it to that next level of success.
Yeah, one of the interesting things of, board versus, management and stuff, honestly, it's an odd relationship, because in some cases, they have authority over certain things. They shouldn't be involved in certain things. They need to make sure the management's, kind of heading in the right direction and not doing anything improper. But they're also not running the company. At the same time, they can open doors. They can make connections. They can be coach, mentor, psychologist, therapist on top of everything else. And you want folks that really, believe to the bone, no different than the management team, of where we need to go. And, this kind of just needs to happen. I think it's roughly around kind of 3 themes for me. One was, financial acumen. We Now that we're gotten the technology to work, we've proven it in the marketplace. We need to really focus on shareholder value, on improving the balance sheet, and getting to the gross margins that we want and getting to profitability. And I'm former Ford Motor Company executive. You spent some good amount of time at GE, which, at the time had, a really, really strong finance organization. And having Will Billings join, he's the global chief accounting officer for a $30 billion semiconductor company. It's taken several companies public, has a great deal of financial expertise and just business logic. And I think it's okay to say it was funny enough that he was an investor in Knightscope before I even met him or knew him.
Right.
So he was your boss at GE, which I think speaks volumes for him joining the board, and gives a lot of great confidence. And I will tell you, Apoorv, it was the most hilarious situation where you had given him as a reference for me to call when we were recruiting you. And the kind of first comment out of him is like, I'm actually an investor. I'm like, what?
Right.
It was awesome from, I don't know, so many different angles. He's like, this industry has to get disrupted. Tell me what I can do to help. And that kind of attitude is more than welcome. And Bob Mockney has his entire career in public service, spent a good amount of time at the Department of Homeland Security, working with a lot of frankly our prospective clients. He tells a story that back in 2016 he had actually come across Knightscope and had become a fan back then, and he's like, this needs to happen.
Yeah.
And he's also got that relentless nature or streak in him.
Yeah.
And he's a pleasure to work with. He's based in Washington, D.C. And now that we have our ATO, makes all the sense in the world for him to be kind of helping us open new doors and build some new relationships in the federal space.
Yeah.
And then Mel, there are not a lot of successful people in the robotics autonomous space. Like, there's been failure after failure after failure. It's kind of difficult. One, two, this job is also very challenging, and having another founder be able to sit at the table and have the understanding of what we're going through, have gone through, and maybe what pitfalls to avoid. We've gotten to know each other, and it's like we've been living parallel lives in a lot of cases. He's gone through some traumatic growth of his own company, and he's very much focused on autonomy. And so it's having a technical person at the table that understands the technology and where we want to go. All kinds of opportunities for us to work together. And as one of the new directors said, it's one team, one fight. And I'm really, really excited to have these folks help us to get to the next stage.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's exactly what I find to be so exciting, that when you were thinking about and we were talking about where we could be successful to set up the stage for the next level, finding the right people to help us get there is going to be critical. And the three people that you brought along on this journey to help me and help you, it's just it's amazing. Will, again, I worked with him since GE days. He was one of the executives that I looked up to as I was learning finance and as part of the finance team. and he's been kind of a mentor to me ever since we met, almost over a decade ago. And he brings a ton to the table in terms of how public companies should be from a finance perspective, from an operations perspective, manufacturing perspective. So he took, after GE, he went to World Fuel Services, where he, transformed their finance organization. Then he went to Airbnb and took them public as a controller. Then he joined Global Foundry, one of the largest, I think $20-30 billion company right now by market cap, where he is leading their, finance group and basically setting the infrastructure needed to be a successful company from them. And, his desire to want to help us do the same, and his confidence in the company and its technology, we're so I'm grateful that he's joined us. I think it elevates our board to such a higher level that I think we could, we're lucky to have all three of these individuals. Yep. Bob Mockney, man, the level of insights he has into the government. I think I started talking to him and I was just fascinated at just the different nuances, intricacies that he's able to bring to the table, and how do you go to market to the government? How do you deal with them? How do you even test whether they are the right governmental partners or not is just as important as knowing that that's the one you want to sell to. So I'm excited to have him and his insights be a driving force for the FedRAMP, the ATO that we just secured. And Mel, man, he, like you said, he's got so much experience. He's been fighting this battle for so long, and such a thought leader in all things robotics, that it was his, when we hung out with him a few days ago, is where I just really, see the opportunity that a company like ours has the ability to provide, and having him there to guide us in that journey that he's been on for the last 30 years or so is going to be just a huge win. So this board, I think, all boards are there for compliance purposes, and boards are there, as you mentioned earlier, to help the team. I think as much as we have the board now that's going to help us stay, do the right things for the shareholders, because they are also shareholders. But on top of that, they will help us drive our top line, our operations, and our bottom line. And you can't ask for a better board than that.
No, I'm truly excited, and this is all part of the 2024 roadmap to profitability. Is a bunch of changes, and there's more changes coming. Yeah. And we're excited to move forward as one unified team. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Yeah. So, some forward-looking statements time?
Yes, of course. Now, I will tell our shareholders that are watching, look, we are, we try to be very careful about what we say, and it's the reason we don't, I think one of the feedback you've received, Bill, is that, hey, why don't you guys share more numbers with us? Why don't you share more data? Why don't you share, and I think, one of the things I appreciate about our relationship and what the way you think about your business and how you look to the future is, that we don't want to put a number on there that we're not very confident about, what it is going to be and our ability to achieve it, right? So, we've seen a lot of firms out there that will put some type of a hockey stick forecasts, some type of a rosy forecast. And the reality is we're in a tough business. This is capital intensive, this is resource intensive, it's time intensive, right? And we are still at the nascent stages of building that foundation that's going to get us to be successful. So for us to go out and try to start sharing, extremely,
rosy.
Rosy numbers, it feels to me that that's not being really thoughtful about how we approach our investors. it's, I think, and again, I think you feel the same way. So I love that we share what we can, and I love that we want to continue to be more transparent. And to those investors that might find it concerning that we're not sharing those numbers, is because we want to make sure that we execute first, and then we talk about the drivers and numbers as we get closer to the execution. That allows us to get more credibility than for us to come to you upfront and say, here's a bunch of rosy numbers, and then not be able to meet them, or have challenges come up that we didn't anticipate, and then have to come back and disappoint our investors who expect us to achieve it.
And to me, the simple thing of what I told the analysts that are looking to potentially cover the stock, or investors that we talk to, it's like, just being frank, I've said this a number of times, no one in the history of mankind has ever done this before, right? And you've got mature public companies, even kind of during the pandemic and supply chain stuff, not giving out any earnings guidance on commodity businesses, right? And so you want us to predict and pass the red face test. No one's ever done this before, but we're going to predict the future here in short order is kind of not credible. What we do try to do is be available. I don't think any company spends as much time as we do answering questions, engaging, trying to be supportive, clarifying questions, doing town halls with 300 people, grilling me for 3 hours in a row and answering every single question. Like, I don't think a lot of folks do that or can do that. So I think with that, a couple of things I wanted to cover on this particular slide. I think we've talked a little bit about revenue and volume during this session thus far, but a lot of FUD that's out there. A ton of short sellers talking about trying to add fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That you're running out of money, you're running out of money, you're running out of money. I've been hearing this for like 10 years. We're not running out of money. Hey, we're a publicly traded company, and it's not 100% correct, but in theory, a public company, it's not is there money, what is the cost of that capital. We've got 3 sources of capital that I've said repeatedly. A multi-million-dollar backlog of new orders, and as we ship, we get additional cash. We have an ATM facility that our friends at H.C. Wainwright manage for us very carefully, and we pull down equity as we need it. Third, we're finishing up our first ever bond offering, which brings in additional capital. And then lastly, just literally cutting costs and improving margins, so that we're not needing additional capital. So I think that to me is really important. And along those same lines, we still have a stretch target to achieve kind of break even / profitability for the fourth quarter of 24. There's still a lot of work to do, but we are making changes to force a win here. So that includes a few things. One, improving our revenue strategy, how you charge for things, what you charge for them, reducing our variable costs. So working really hard on getting the bill of material costs of the machines now. We've been spending a lot of time just getting them all to work. Did we optimize that $400 part that should be, $20? No, not yet, but now we can spend the time on that, including labor efficiencies. The older machines that we used to build, as I often say, 100, 120 hours. You heard earlier in the week that we're now able to build and ship on the order of, instead of 1 a week or less than 1 a week to 3 a week. And hopefully we'll be getting to 5 a week here in short order. And that reduces the overall kind of labor cost going into the machines. A lot of leveraging outsourcing of our maintenance and service operations, no different than on our autonomous security robot side of things. We're a technology company, we're not a construction company, and having professionals be able to help us manage that and cover our clients nationwide much more effectively We've started to make and implement those changes. We've streamlined the management team, as you've seen, a much leaner, meaner team. And then one of the things that's going to take a little time, but reducing our physical footprint across the country. We presently have 13 facilities nationwide, and with 3 manufacturing locations, and we're going to be narrowing that down to 1, and to be as highly efficient as possible. So these are some difficult changes we're making, but they're necessary, which sets us up for the future, which is a little cryptically on the right-hand side. That little chart means a lot more than what it might look like. So this is what the future entails in terms of our long-term architecture strategy. We spoke of building a new AI mission control to manage all these devices, drones, dogs, droids, etc. And it's become abundantly obvious that that is just as important as an outward-facing use case for our clients as it is inward. If you look at what Tesla did, it was a very controversial decision in my view years ago. They did not engage an ERP provider like a NetSuite or an Oracle or SAP or something like that. They literally built the whole thing internally, which I give massive kudos to the team there for doing that. In a lot of cases, we're having to do things that are not core to an SAP, NetSuite, or Oracle, and tools that we're building internally for our operations to be as lean and mean and technologically advanced as possible. And that means trying to build an all-new architecture around central intelligence to have that AI-driven user interface, but as well as an internal AI-driven tool for our team for predictive maintenance, for configuration, for faster deployments of stuff. And it's become abundantly obvious we need to build tools for our own unique technologies. So that architecture would be called Central Intelligence. The second one is just looking at the entire portfolio of stationary technology, looking at the K1B side of things and the hemispheres and the super tower and a lower cost indoor machine. We need to rethink the architecture, the technology, the sensors used for all that, which in a lot of cases can decidedly be different than what you would put on an autonomous machine or an autonomous vehicle.
Right.
So there's a whole portfolio of products that we're planning for the future. Some of them outlined there that help build and secure a perimeter ingress-egress locations, providing safety points and health points, all built on one architecture across multiple products.
Right.
And then we're working on, as we previewed earlier in the week, the all-new K7, and the architecture is called Moonraker. And there's a lot of learnings that we believe are going to come from that K7 to actually go slightly in reverse to reapply to a future K5. So this is, let's call it low or lower speed autonomous motion, which is certainly a different set of sensor suites and architectures and compute needed to do that. And then again, in the future, there's a lot of humanoid and quadruped technology coming, and in some cases we may partner, some cases we may build, some cases we may buy. Yeah. But having so I'm going to date myself here. ZZ Top had a song called Legs, and so I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what am I going to call this architecture? So for now, we'll take the ZZ nomenclature there for the K8 humanoid and K9 dog. And then lastly, an Orca platform that's much larger for city and highway patrol. And that kind of 4 architectures for hardware, robotics, autonomous machines, and 1 unifying AI-driven software platform is what the future looks like at Knightscope. And I think it's a very exciting future. And everything that we just talked about this week and on these slides and this particular slide, it's all doable. It's literally cash, people, and time. There's not a, I don't know how to get from X to Y. So what do you think of that outlook, Apoorv?
I mean, it just ties to all the things we talked about earlier, right? We have a 10-year vision and some really important goals, and milestones to hit in terms of revenue, profit, operations, and most important and underpinning all that is the support and the services we provide to our clients. This is really cool. Again, it builds on that ecosystem that we've talked about so often, and the company is doing some really thoughtful things to become a leader in public safety.
All right, let's keep going then. So we're gonna go through this one quickly here, and if you want to hit the first one, this is just to clarify what's in current production today. So you got a blue light tower from left to right, ePhone, the K1 Hemisphere, the K5 outdoor, K3 indoor, K1 tower, and then the K1 call boxes. And so all this is in production. And remember, we design, we engineer, we physically build these machines. So made in the USA by us. We deploy them and then we support them. And then let's move on to the next slide. And these are going to go quick. And the reason I put these, I'll call them brochures, in the deck, and you can download the entire deck here at knightscope.com/rise, RISE, as in Rise of the Robots, is, believe it or not, Apoorv, I don't know how many people we still get with, hey, cool prototype, when are you launching? And it's, I guess, maybe it looks too futuristic or too advanced, or they think this is not possible or whatever. But after all these years, and we're kind of in our own little Knightscope bubble. We think, the world revolves around Knightscope, and some people tell me that's not true. I'm not sure. But a lot of folks are like, nice prototype, and I'm just, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just put all the specs of all the stuff that we actually build in the deck so people can see for themselves, and also for prospective clients to be able to thumb through here. That's so great. We'll go through these really quick. So this is the K5 outdoor. It talks to you about user interface, the charging and LTE and the like, and where you might use them. And then we go to the next one is the K3 indoor. Give you the dimensions of things, again, where you might use them. Moving on to the next one, this is the stationary version, effectively, of the K3 and the K5. It's rather tall, and a lot of casinos and operators like that, both ingress and egress, used indoors and outdoors for where there might be a lot of people or a lot of vehicles going by. Okay. And then the Hemisphere, this is our lowest cost one. This is as low as 75 cents an hour. So again, you have no excuse not to be using the most advanced technology available to better protect the places people live, work, study, and visit. And then the next one would be automated gunshot detection. So this is hyper local use of a sensor array and AI to be able to detect a possible shots fired within 2 seconds.
Wow.
So you put this every couple hundred of feet, and then you're able to have like an array of AI ears on the lookout and listening for those gunshots, and then you can get immediate response. So this comes both as a standalone that you can mount on a wall. There is a version where you can put it outdoors and have it powered by solar power, and then we also have it integrated with the K1 blue light tower.
that's this one right here.
And that's this one right here. A beacon of safety, as we like to say. And this, I think, also has some wonderful opportunities to continue to be used today. Obviously the sales show it. Like, we're still a lot of interest in the technology. Let's keep going. The blue light ePhone. So this is a compact version that you might see in a parking structure of that blue light tower. Can still also be powered by solar. Oh, remember, all our entire blue light tower portfolio is wireless and can be solar powered. A lot of these, the several 100,000 that have been put across the country from ourselves and other firms, in a lot of cases, are still running on landlines, or finally moving from 2G to 3G to 4G. So this, there's a lot of innovation opportunities here.
I love this one because I think, as we think about how do we, this is the company that you had purchased a year ago, and now, we've integrated the back end as of last year. Now we're integrating the front end and then continuing to build on this. And I, as interesting and old school, the call boxes can be, the innovation here is really the fact that it's wireless, it's self, powering through the solar panels, and reality is you can deploy these. It's like plug and play essentially to some extent, because all you're doing is you're just bringing them in and plugging them, and you can they can be up and running. Versus traditionally, you had to go get, an electrical permit, you had to go get a phone permit, you had to go, do all of this work, dig trenches across, long distances, and wait months to deploy them. I think the fact that, clients can really go from, hey, I have a need, to I can deploy it in such a short period of time because we don't have to do all those things, is a unique value prop for us. And by the way, it allows us to have the footprint we need to be continuing to build on the safety features we want to build, the networking features.
And there's a couple more points on here. The ones that are on landlines, coincidentally, in a lot of cases, are on military bases. So, military base, especially the ones in the U.S., are, it's frankly like a small city, right? You got maybe 2,000 or 3,000 residents, and then, peak volume of almost 10,000 people coming in and out daily, and their need for normal, just general public safety stuff is as important as it is for a normal city. But then you got the addition of the perimeter security concerns. I think one crazy thing that we didn't cover here is CHEMS, our software-based user interface for our blue light towers. So up until a year ago, if you wanted to go test one of these devices to see if it's working, a human needed to go get in a truck, drive 2.5 hours, 3 hours to the middle of nowhere, and go press the button and see if the thing works or not. And with some basic innovation of technology, now we have all 9,300 plus of these devices all across the country tied in. And then instead of testing them once a year, twice a year, literally testing them 24/7. And this is what I keep speaking of. We need to have a massive overhaul of the public safety infrastructure for this country in order to get this to the next generation of capabilities to keep Americans safe from those that seek to do harm.
This was an interesting one. It's kind of going back to, full circle to where we talked about how we use, our technology to augment humans and to make them, exponentially more productive. The fact that you had to have someone drive to a location, twice a year to push a button and say, yep, is it working? Yep, it's working, and then drive back.
In the year 2023, 2024, we're doing what?
Yeah, and CHEMS, it's relatively, it's such a, great way to just augment
knowledge,
exponentially increase productivity of these individuals who now have a command center. It's a dashboard. They can monitor each one remotely, and if one pings off, they get an alert. They send someone out there, and they can save on so much costs and so much downtime by just having this one small tool. And it's a small leap, but I think incredible value.
And kudos to the K1B engineering team. This was not a small feat.
Oh, I bet.
There is a significant amount of complexity, legacy issues to deal with in order to pull this off. But now we got it up and running, and our clients can now enjoy that capability. Operationally, we can now address service and downtime issues much more effectively. And actually, in a lot of cases, now offered as a subscription service, an additional software revenue source.
That's great. I saw it in action a few, I think, weeks ago when I first started, and it just, again, all of this is so exciting to me as I learn. These are things that we're doing. I think we have one more.
We got a couple more, yeah. So we got the K1 call box. There's 5,000 of these plus across the country, and some people ask, like, why are they look so funny? This needs to survive a fire, a significant amount, like a windstorm or any natural kind of disasters. Try to make this as robust as possible. So that's why it may not look as sleek as some folks. That said, I think there is a next generation of technologies that we can bring to help our clients even better. So why don't we keep going?
Sure.
This one's interesting. Remember, I just spoke of all the landlines and old, several 100,000 of these that are, frankly, way past due. We offer a retrofit kit that can retrofit our competitors' existing towers that are out in the field. And so that's also been a really good source of additional revenue by utilizing our technology.
Whoa.
And then these are the future concepts that we talked about earlier in the week. So on the left-hand side is the K10 Patrol. So this is a three-wheeled electric vehicle intended to drive autonomously on city roads up to, let's say, 35 miles an hour. On the right-hand side is a SWAT tactical K15 that would house unmanned ground vehicles, drones, and dogs, quadrupeds, and be able to be on scene when needed autonomously. And then on both the left and right-hand side is a concept of the K1 Super Tower. So as I mentioned earlier in the week, one of the best ways to improve public safety is light can be a disinfectant. And a lot of these existing portfolio of our technologies don't have a basic street lamp that goes with it. And you look at a lot of these electric vehicle charging stations, we have a couple of Teslas, and in a lot of cases, they're in really good locations. Or maybe it's not a Tesla supercharger, you're going to a non-Tesla one. In some cases, you're in the middle of nowhere or not in the greatest neighborhood. And some of our teammates are like, well, we should just put some K1 blue light towers there. I'm like, yeah, you can put the tower there, but it's like 11 o'clock at night and it's pitch black.
Right.
And, we could probably do something a little bit more thoughtful here. And really use battery technology and solar power and lights and acoustic event detection and displays and that sort of thing to redefine a modular next generation tower. So that's on the docket for us to work on. And then what's under the blue tarp?
Yeah, what is under the blue tarp?
Everything goes well, cross fingers, we'll see. Hopefully next year we can start taking pre-orders for the all new, highly anticipated Knightscope K7 autonomous security robot. for patrol. We'll call it kind of K7 multi-terrain. It's not intended to go off-road or anything like that, but to handle slightly more difficult terrain up to, let's say, 10 miles an hour. So think about normal parking lots and parking structures, but possible areas along the border, opportunities at solar farms and wind farms and power utility substations. And we have a lot of clients with, humongous corporate campuses that a K5 is not going to be able to handle. The perimeter or the rough perimeter around an airport, so much longer distances and slightly more difficult terrain. And as you saw earlier this week, we're in earnest working on it. And so I think that's going to be another revenue generating opportunity in the future for us.
That's great. I'm excited to see what it comes out to look like under that tarp.
All right, I think we're wrapping up here. So remember, there are some forward-looking statements here. Here's a disclaimer for you. If you want to pull the SEC filings for us or whatever, we've got a dedicated investor relations website at ir.knightscope.com. If you like the Rise of the Robot video series, or you want to pull down this presentation, those are readily available for you at knightscope.com/rise. And I think we got one or two more.
There you go.
And so this is Knightscope headquarters. A lot of folks ask, where are these built? Where are you located? Are you an American company? So we reside in the heart of Silicon Valley in sunny California in Mountain View. And we're really excited to kind of take this to the next level. And should be the last slide, one more.
There you go.
Just in case you need a reminder, Knightscope trades on NASDAQ under the ticker symbol KSCP. And thanks, Apoor, for doing this long form version of going through the investor presentation. But I know a lot of folks have been asking for this, so hopefully they found it helpful. And you did a great job on, where's Waldo?
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation to do this and the opportunity to do this. And, I'll just walk away with one thought, which is what I love about this company and what you've built is the transparency around the things that you're doing. Generally you don't see public companies as transparent, and you've taken your shareholders and your clients and your customers and all your stakeholders on this journey with you, and this is just another part of that. So I'm excited to be part of it, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Apoor. We're gonna go make some history together and frankly cause some trouble. But thanks everyone for tuning in. And don't forget two things. One, robots will be everywhere. And two, long Knightscope and short the criminals. We'll see you on the other side. Thanks, everyone.